Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about the new CGI remake of The Lion King. Of course, this is a remake of the 1994 classic Disney film. For me personally, it was one of my first theatrical films I remember seeing. Yes, I'm sure I've seen other films before Lion King when I was really, really young, but as far as films that I personally remember actually seeing on the big screen and kind of experiencing how big a film could be, The Lion King was kind of my first experience with that. I was about 4 years old when it came out, and it was one of the, like I said, one of the first theatrical films I actually personally remember seeing. It was a big deal. It's still one of my all-time favorite animated Disney films of all time. So it's a very big film for me. So seeing a kind of a more photorealistic remake of this classic film was kind of a big deal for me. So here I am reviewing it for you today. Let's talk about The Lion King. So if you have no idea what The Lion King is about, if you have never seen it, have never heard about it, well, I'm about to give you a synopsis of it, and that is it's about a young lion cub in a animal kingdom called Pride Rock, and he is accused of killing his father after this tragedy happens, and so he flees the kingdom. He encounters two animals named Timon and Pumbaa, who teach him a more carefree lifestyle, try to teach him to kind of ignore all these horrible things that happened in Simba's past and just kind of move on and enjoy eating bugs and enjoying the wild with them. But Simba's called back to his kingdom when an old friend of his crossed paths with him after a long absence of the two of them not speaking to each other. And so Simba is called back to the animal kingdom to kind of fix the wrongs that have happened since he's left. And he must go back to Pride Rock and claim himself as the Lion King of Pride Rock since his uncle Scar is not running the kingdom very well, and it's up to Simba to take the kingdom back and bring the kingdom back to what it formerly was after his father passed away. So overall, guys, for this new Lion King film, I enjoyed this film a lot. I thought it was visually impressive. You can definitely tell where we're visually going in film through this movie. That really, we are truly getting to the point now in film where live action films and animation films are, in a way, technically speaking, kind of one and the same now. There's kind of nothing we can't do in animation now thanks to this new Lion King movie. It really is photorealistic. You would swear that if this was made at a way earlier time, somebody was out in the wild somewhere filming this animal story happening. It really does look that real. It really is very visually impressive to look at. So, on a visual standpoint, off the wall, crazy good. This is a very visually impressive film. And it's a good film in general. I think my biggest issue with this Lion King movie, and what a lot of people, and especially on Rotten Tomatoes, a lot of critics are really hating on this part of the film I'm about to talk about, and that is um, they literally remade The Lion King. And what I mean by that is kind of like what happened with Gus Van Sant's Psycho in the 1990s. He took a film that everybody loved and appreciated, and since he really couldn't find a way to change anything, he literally remade the movie. So, not to say that John Favreau exactly did that, but what he did is he basically used the exact same story, the exact same beats, exact same songs, and I think even Hans Zimmer himself scored this movie again. And he basically just retold the exact same story in a more photorealistic manner. So as a result, we really don't get a lot of new material this time. Not a lot of new approaches or new ideas are added to this movie. So similar to Gus Van Sant's Psycho, they're both remakes that literally remade the film that we all know and love and didn't really add anything new to it. So I think that's something that's going to hurt this Lion King film in the long run, but the fact that it is a visual achievement, I think it's what's going to help this film in the long run as well. So it is kind of a catch-22 experience with this movie in the sense that we have this achievement in one area, but something that's very, very lacking in another area. And it does hurt this film for me personally too. So let's go over some positives and negatives of things that The Lion King absolutely gets right, and some things that I think is going to hurt this film in the long run, and why I personally like that original animated film from 1994 better than this movie. So for my positives and negatives of The Lion King, for my positives, like I said, visually stunning. It's visually perfect. You can tell the animators of this film, since it is like a CGI remake of sorts, they spent a lot of time studying animals out in the wild and studying lions and figuring out how they move and how they would speak and all this other stuff. And they brought it to a live action format the best way possible you could in CGI animation. It's just visually stunning, very realistic. Visually, I have no complaints with this film. It's just visually amazing. And then that goes into my next positive point. I really think they nailed animal movement in this film. It's probably the first movie I've ever seen where the animals, you would swear you're looking at real animals. They nail it so well. Whether it's a lion moving or Pumbaa the warthog moving or a mouse moving, they mastered the movements. I don't know how you could have perfected movement in a CGI animated film the way that these Lion King animators managed to do it. Just something as simple as a mouse moving across the screen never looked more real in my life in an animated movie. They really nailed the realism of animals out in the wild in this movie. Another thing I liked to this movie that I would say, as far as Jon Favreau adding a visual and kind of message-heavy part of the directing part of this movie, I thought his whole circle of life visuals and messages were very consistent in this movie. There's a lot of scenes where the animals are always saying, it's the circle of life, whether antelopes are eating the grass and the animals eat the antelopes that have once eaten that grass, and how everything's kind of connected, whether we're not connected or not, or how certain animals eat the same type of things out in the wild while others don't, and kind of what does grass and ground and sky mean to the animals that maybe don't spend a lot of time in those areas. How does it all connect? So there's very much a circle of life, visual and metaphoric and deep meaning behind that in this movie that I thought Jon Favreau really mastered in this movie. So the whole circle of life message, visually and metaphorically, was very consistent and well grounded in this movie. This is also a very fun and entertaining film. I never really felt bored in this movie, besides kind of just predicting everything that was going to happen, since, like I said, they really do kind of beat for beat follow that original Lion King screenplay here. But it's very fun, it's very entertaining, it's never really boring. So as far as a film that is just entertaining to watch and a lot of fun to watch, The Lion King really does do that very well. And also, whenever Timon and Pumbaa are on screen, I had a lot of fun with this. I can't quite say they're a better Timon and Pumbaa than the animated one from 1994, but whenever they appear on screen and try to do something fun and make us laugh, Timon and Pumbaa are just a ton of fun to watch in this movie. For my negatives of this movie, though, going back to that Gus Van Sant Psycho remake comparison, there really is not a lot of new material here. I would say besides one scene involving Nala at nighttime, this film really does not have any new material at all, unfortunately. They really don't expand the story or expand the characters or add new characters either in any way. There really is not enough new material here, and unfortunately when you're remaking a movie, you kind of have to have your own spin or new ideas added to that movie to make it qualify as a good remake to a film that's already been made. So I felt like they could have done a better job with making more new material for this movie. I also felt that this film was just not as energetic as that 1994 animated film, whether it is I Just Can't Wait to Be King or a musical number or a lot of energy from a character. I just didn't feel a sense of energy this time around. It was just kind of by the numbers notions of we got to get over this story point to make it to the next one kind of a feeling. There just wasn't a lot of energy in this film, and I think that's what's going to hurt it also in the long run for this movie. Also, the character of Scar. One thing I was worried about from the trailers on out for this movie, I was worried how Chiwetel Ejiofor's voice performance was going to compare to Jeremy Irons' voice performance from 1994. Unfortunately, that 1994 Jeremy Irons voice performance is more powerful here. He is a much more intimidating Scar than the Scar is in this movie. Not to say that Chiwetel Ejiofor necessarily did a bad job with playing the voice role of Scar in this movie, but it just wasn't as intimidating this time around, and I really feel that Jeremy Irons gave the better voice performance to bring Scar to life better in that 1994 film over this film with Chiwetel Ejiofor. I also thought there was just not enough flair and style to this movie. Besides the photorealistic look, I really didn't see anything that Jon Favreau added to this movie, or what Jeff Nathanson, who also wrote Catch Me If You Can, wrote for the movie. There just wasn't enough new flair and style. It just was kind of copy and paste from that earlier animated film and placed here in this movie. So I just thought there could have been more flair and style to this new Lion King movie. I also just overall think there wasn't enough creative risks done with this movie. Can a character be bad in this movie? Can a character be good in this movie who was bad in the first one? Is there new story points to explore? Is there something we could have done with Simba more? Something we could have done with Nala more? Something we could have... What were Timon and Pumbaa up to before they met Simba? You know, like what could they have done to make this film more fun and more creative and add something to the people who have watched that earlier Lion King film for many years now? What are we going to bring new to the table for them that hasn't been done yet? And I just feel like there wasn't enough creative risks and considerations like that to make this Lion King stand out the way it probably should have. But overall, I'm going to give this new Lion King 2019 remake an 8.5 out of 10. There's tons of things to love about this movie. It's a huge, massive visual achievement that I think is going to basically set the standard for CGI animators in the future here in Hollywood. But for negatives, there's just not enough new material here. It just doesn't have the same energy as that 1994 animated film had. I just didn't like the Scar voice performance as much this time around as the Jeremy Irons voice performance in that 1994 film. It just doesn't have the flair and the style that the 1994 film had once again. And once again, if you're going to remake a film, you got to take some creative risks every once in a while. Don't just tell the same story again. You got to try something new. So 8.5 out of 10 for me. I like this film, but really felt like when it was lacking in a certain area, I really could have used improvements. So 8.5 out of 10 for me. I highly recommend seeing the new Lion King, but go in it knowing that there's not a lot of new things that they explore this time around.